Welcome today to a rather exceptional woman, Monika Zampa, keynote speaker, best-selling author, empowerment female coach, and energy healer, who I have had the privilege to work with a few months back, and I am still incubating the profound insights our session brought me. So today we will be talking about a topic that has probably affected every one of us at some point or another and in one form or another. Toxic relationships. Already the word is heavily loaded. But before we go there, Monika, maybe in your own words, you just share a little bit about who you are, where you're based, and why you do what you do.
Beautiful, Julie. Thank you so much for having me here today on this very special podcast, because every 1 in 3 women is involved in toxic relationships. So 1/3 of the population of females are actually included in this topic. I am an ordinary woman who became extraordinary, and it happened the last 4 years when I started to really work on myself deeply. And for the rest of my life, I'm 51, so for about 47 years, I found myself in various toxic environments, or environments which were really not suiting me, and I was depleted and I was unhappy, but I hardly realized that it is a toxic environment because I was so deeply immersed into it.
Right.
So I've been living in Amsterdam for 22 years. I came here on a short trip with one bag and I stayed.
Where are you from originally, Monika?
I'm Czech, and my
Right.
father is Czech and my mom is Russian. I lived in
Oh.
UK for 11 years. I was investment banker, closing huge deals. And then I traveled to India to find my enlightenment, which I did at the time. I thought, I got it, I cracked it. And then, 30 years later, I'm
Yes.
still working on it.
I don't think it ever ends, to be honest.
That was a good start. I've been meditating for 26 years, almost every day.
Wow.
And you said I'm an energy healer. It's something which it's called energy healer. I'm just a clear transmission for the message which needs to be transmitted to a client. So I am
Right.
in service, and my mission and purpose in life is to help women to step out of smallness, hiding themselves, not speaking out, and to really claim the power who they really are. And I'm
Wow.
doing it because I've done it myself. So if I
Right.
can do it, so
Anyone
can
can do it. And that is so perfectly aligned with what I stand for and what I hope this podcast stands for. And that is, now is the time to shine, right? If we don't make those changes now and clear out what needs to be cleared out so that there's room for the new and for the wholeness of who we are, when else are we going to do it? So Monika, thank you very much. I know, as I said before, from firsthand experience, the power of what you do. And I have been coached and spoken to by quite a lot of people over my life. But the insights you brought me were of a different dimension. So I'm delighted to have you. Now we're talking about toxic relationships. So, I mean, relationships are difficult at the best of time, or they take work. Toxic, how would we, first of all, define a toxic relationship?
Good question. So most of the time I'm going to talk about women and a man just for this particular episode. So if a woman is finding herself in a relationship where she feels that she's afraid to speak up,
Right.
she's afraid to voice her needs because of fear of being ridiculed and laughed at, if she has to walk around at home on eggshells because she doesn't want to trigger her partner, if she feels that her partner is not taking her seriously, disregards her voice, if she is saying yes but she wants to say no,
Right.
if she is dreading coming home, if
Mm.
she is not having sexual relationship with her partner, because that's super important for women,
Yes.
and she is in with that man, or let's say a woman, for example, in like a brother and sister relationship where they become friends and it's stale,
Right.
not inspiring, then if she's in toxic
And she's in a
relationships.
toxic relationship.
And what I really would love to say this example, I say it very often and I love it still. So imagine that you have a big pot of cooking water, boiling water, and you drop a live frog in it. The frog will jump out immediately because she wants to rescue herself. if you put a big pot of cold water, put the frog in it and slowly start it to boil, the frog will sit there until it boils and dies. And this is what happens, I've got goosebumps, in toxic relationship, because we don't know we are in it. We don't know most of the time that we are in that boiling pot.
Right. That is a wonderful image. Gosh, it's giving me goosebumps as well. Yes. But it is so very true. So then we need to also talk about, so maybe we don't know at first, right, that it's going to be toxic, or maybe we hope we're going to change them, or...
So look, so when we are young teenagers, we enter these relationships with our partners completely based on Hollywood romantic movies. We think it's going to be Prince on White Horse. We are completely naive, never really had a proper education what relationship is, how the man should treat you, how should you treat yourself, how should you talk to yourself. I'll talk about it in a minute. So we enter into relationships. Well, I remember my first boyfriend, he slapped me 3 times on my face, and I thought I slapped him back. But I thought it's okay. No one told me that is not okay.
Right.
I didn't know. I was 17. I thought, this is odd, but everyone is doing it. In Czech Republic, the domestic violence was pretty high.
Right.
So I thought, maybe that's how it is.
Yeah.
So we enter into relationship in the beginning completely naive. And we are basing it very much on our parents, how the father treated the mother, how the mother treated the father. Then we bring a little bit of ingredients from our peer environment and from movies, from the social media. So I have created a beautiful free PDF, How to Spot a Toxic Relationship. So
good.
You're very welcome. It's, women know. Women have intuition. When you go on a date and your date is late by not 5 minutes, by an hour, it's not right. Just turn around and go home.
But then still, lots of us still do it, right?
I did it. My boyfriend was like 3 days.
Exactly. And I mean, I'm glad you also said you're going to come back to it, because when you're talking, because last week's episode was being on your own best friend, I was thinking, but often one of the most toxic relationships we have is with ourselves, when we're forever telling ourselves, no, you can't do that, and nobody's going to listen to you, and, who do you think you are, and all of that sort of thing.
Yes. Yes. So that's actually, I wrote something. So if you want to change where you are right now, you need to change the way you talk to yourself. You need to change your mind and stop the negative chit chat, which is constantly happening in your mind. And the way you talk to yourself about yourself is how the world will see you and accept you. Right? It's really, really powerful. If you are in a partnership, and the partnership at home directly relates to partnership at work. So because we copy paste what's happening at home, we copy paste very often in our work environment. So if you allow your partner to treat you badly, it's not because he is a bad guy. It's because you treating yourself inside badly. You allowing these words, which are not nourishing, to penetrate you. And instead of throwing tantrum and saying, no, I don't accept it, I don't want that, I'm worth more, you say, okay,
right. So is it then all linked to self-esteem, to recognizing that we can't, well, first of all, there's so many issues when we talk about women, so many reasons why people stay when, and then the episode's about, 50, it's now is enough. But, we talk about toxic here as well, which can, of course, be physical as well. But it's more, that allegory you made of the frog in that cold water, which, just literally it gets more and more hot, not good for us, poisonous, toxic, etc. But there isn't that big one first shock where you say, okay, that's enough, I got to get out of here. So it's more that we're being cooked so slowly that we don't notice it. And then we talk about 50 plus, there's then all these worries about, but will I find somebody else? Is being alone better than, being with somebody bad? Do I deserve, though we rarely ask ourselves that question outright, but do we really believe that we deserve the perfect relationship? So we stick around for all sorts of wrong reasons. So, okay, first of all, I like the fact that you've got this PDF, how to
I have many
spot.
PDFs. I have one about toxic relationships, how to spot them.
Yes, because that's already good. So if we're talking about those who are not in one, but who are, say, lots of the audience are either, divorced or separated,
Okay.
let's say.
Second
So
round.
how to make
Second
sure you
round,
don't
first
make the same
round.
mistake. Right. Yeah.
So, well, funnily enough, you mentioning I'm starting to date. I went on a
Right.
date yesterday, right? I'm starting my dating process again after a long period of self-discovery, rediscovery, reshaping myself, consciously being by myself, without any men. So let's say lots of clients come to me and they're like, I'm 20 years in relationship. We have no sexual relationship between ourselves. I'm bored. I don't love him. I have to do everything myself. I want to quit. I'm done. Kids are out. I'm done. So let's assume you want to start dating again. So the first thing which I would tell the audience, if you want to attract an amazing partner who is healthy, funny, sexual, spiritual, your ideal partner, you need to become that person yourself first.
Right.
And because when we are looking outside for the confirmation, we're always going to be waiting for our partner to say, yes, I'm good enough. I am looking for approval. We will never get it. Even if a partner will tell us how much they love us, if you have a hole inside your body, which you cannot fill, you will never be satisfied. So that's a big one, and it's uncomfortable. It takes lots of self-searching. And I would tell all the ladies who are going to listen, you do not have to do it alone. We are now in the period of time where there are beautiful women who help other women to become who they want to become. And you can do it by yourself, but it's so much harder.
It's so much harder, and for many reasons, right? Because often we don't see, first of all, we're not our own best friends. So it's always good to have one, to help us, as a coach or as a counselor or whatsoever at the beginning, and to ask those right questions. Because I dare say that, by 50, we're quite set in our way of thinking, well, this is how one does it. And one needs somebody to say, but what if, and, if you could, to open that up. And I think what you've just said is so very true. I see a lot of women around me searching for their happiness to come with this dream man who's going to come around. And like you've just said, you're starting to date again, but after you have done that soul searching yourself on who are you. You're not needy. You like the idea of having somebody to share everything with, but it's not out of a survival or I will only be happy if. And I think that's what changes everything.
Yeah. I created this, well, we work together, so you know that I'm a little bit different than most of the people. I have a routine, which I also teach my clients or for free or sometimes paid. What's really important, if you want to create extraordinary life, in all categories, in health, money, relationship, you need to kind of work on it every single day. But the work you put every single day is fun. It should nourish you. It should make you look forward to. You should be thrilled. And so, for example, before this podcast, I went for a walk. And that's my non-negotiable daily activity, to go for a walk. Then I meditate, I exercise, I nurture my mind, I dream, I surround myself with beautiful, high-vibing people. And being sensitive, I smell if someone is around me who is drowning me down, is depleting my energy, I gently remove myself from that environment. And I no longer need to tell why I'm removing myself. I'm 50 plus. I know who I am.
Right.
If I decide to leave, I leave.
Yes.
And so if you're looking for happiness, start with yourself and start with very small steps. Something which you love to do and something which will push you a little bit out of your comfort zone. Because I started my new business and recreating myself at age of 47. and things
Yes.
I can do today. 4 years ago, I'll be totally terrified. Speaking in front of camera, speaking in front of public,
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah.
But I do it because my mission is bigger.
Yes. And it takes effort, right? You know, it doesn't just fall down. It's moving outside of our comfort zone that we grow, and we're meant to grow. We can't stagnate. We
Yes.
need to continue developing. Okay, so for if we're talking about people who have moved out of a relationship, or who've maybe not even had a relationship, or who keep constantly falling into the same pattern of toxic relationships, because that's also a pattern. So I'm hearing you say the first step, whether you like it or not, and you want it to come from the outside, is work on yourself.
Yes.
You need to be that person, right? You've just said that person that you're looking for, that you want to attract. You need to be it. You need to be that strong spiritual, sexual person, and you need to be happy with who you are, and you need to love yourself before you can, attract that love from someone else. Now, what about the who are in that pot? Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to say here something, because when you are in a toxic relationship, or you have been all your life, your self-esteem is so low.
Right.
You are so vulnerable. And to say you need to become happy, it's almost impossible.
Yes.
If you've been in a relationship for 19 years, 20 years, and constantly drop by drop, drip by drip, your self-esteem was corroding, you need to take baby steps. And I would like to recommend something which really helped me. My number one first step, which I did when I finished my relationship, I looked up on Google mirror work, Melissa Pierce, and that was really hard. I went into the bathroom, stood in front of the mirror, looked at myself, not like, all my wrinkles and everything. No, looked at myself and said to me, I love you. You are amazing. You are doing so well. And while I was saying these things, I was reprogramming my neurotransmitters. If those who love neuroscience, I was detaching those thick spaghetti wires, and I was reconnecting them into another wire. So new programming was happening in my brain. And I was doing it for 28 days. Lots of back noise, lots of brown or gray noise was like, you're not good enough. And I kept doing it. I wrote it all over my house. I'm good enough. I still have it some places. I'm good enough. And after 28 days, when I looked at the mirror, and it stayed the same, it's 4 years later, I'm amazing.
Yeah.
And I looked at myself, I'm amazing. And it comes automatic. The doubt, the self-critic doesn't have the time to come in, because I have new neurotransmitters. And that's a step number one.
And we can do it, because we were talking also the other day about the fact that women are so frightened of being arrogant, but it's not being arrogant to say, I love myself. Happy people who love themselves are the ones who do good in the world, who give service. But I think for lots of women, they're a bit like, oh, well, who would I think I am to say that? I remember I tried that as well. And the first time I did it, I actually cried.
Yes. Oh, it's because you are saying it not to you, not the woman 50 plus. You're saying it to that little girl, which is inside.
Very true.
It's
who wanted love. We all want love, right?
Yeah.
You're just finally, that's a beautiful way to start. And you are quite right. When you have been in that relationship for so long, I suppose you don't even know who you are anymore, because you're so used to being that which the other person says you are, right? Who puts you down for his own reasons or her own reasons, put themselves up. And you've just accepted that that's how it is, right?
Yes.
And so it's quite a wake-up call to move away from that.
And most of the times you cannot move out of that relationship until something happens, right? We humans are really pathetic in this respect. We only do something when it becomes unbearably painful, or you suddenly, by sort of magical intervention, you have some kind of webinar or a movie or a friend or something comes into your life, and you realize, oh, it could be different.
Right.
I could live a different life, And if you keep surrounding yourself, let's say you have a husband or a partner, a boyfriend, and you're meeting the same people, being toxic in a relationship, same people, the chances of you waking up by saying, I won't get out and I'll be supported are zero.
Right.
You have to have somehow you have to have this magical power overnight where you say, I'm leaving or I'm
Yeah.
changing. So
And I suppose the good news in our digital world is that those people, the people who will inspire you, the people who will hold your hand, the people who will say to you, you're wonderful and you will survive. I mean, before we might not have found them immediately in our surroundings, but now, I mean, there are also online groups, online networks where people can be there for each other, where you can join a peer group of other women or people moving out and support each other. And so nowadays, nobody needs to be alone. And you also said you don't need to do it alone. It's extremely scary. I mean, moving out of a relationship is scary at the best of times. But I think after 50, there is all that extra noise, about how are you going to survive? And maybe you haven't worked and how, finance, how are you going to do it? And what about the children? And where am I going to live? But none of those are reasons to stay if you are fundamentally being undermined. I mean, happiness goes before all the rest. And the good news is that when the rest is strong, it follows. You find somewhere to live, you find a job, or there should never be a reason big enough to keep us small and unfulfilled and miserable in a toxic relationship.
no, that's true. There should never be a reason. And the reason is actually between here and here. Between
Right.
our two ears. That's the
Yeah.
reason why we stay. The toxic relationship, you can have a emotional abuse, physical abuse, and lack of praise.
Yes.
And the last one, lack of praise, is something which I want to talk about just briefly, because it's totally disregarded. You could be living in a very good, solid relationship or work, environment, but you have never received a praise. And it comes from childhood. If you are in the childhood, been living under quite strict, domineering parents who, doesn't matter how hard you tried, never praised you, never gave you love, never said, well done, then you're going to copy that into the future and find yourself a partner who is the same or worse.
Right.
So people say like, oh, I'm not in toxic relationship, but most of them are.
Yeah.
Lack of praise, to me, is toxic.
Right.
Undermines your self-worth. And so I was talking about the mirror work. Then you mentioned about money, and lots of women do not want to leave their partners because they say, how will I survive? How will I finance myself? And that's also part of the mission, is to help women to find the courage, self-love and self-worth, and also find a financial stability and abundance. So if they do want to leave, they have their own money. If they do want to travel, they have their own money to do that.
So you guide your clients in that as well?
Yes,
I
do. For me, it's a holistic approach. I have different modalities, starting from energy healing. So if I would break it down, it would be like energy healing. If a woman is in a toxic relationship, there is somewhere that frog sitting on that stream, and we don't know. And it is so deeply subconsciously hidden that you don't know, you really don't know. And it takes somebody else to lovingly and sometimes very actively find it. You had that session, so you came up with answers like,
Yes. Yeah.
And then I have programs where I guide women with courage, self-confidence, self-worth, and also, if they choose to have more money, more abundance in the life, I have another method.
That's the first time I hear of that. And I think that makes total sense, because it is something in that lack of security, right, which worries women. And in this age group particularly, you think that maybe even if you do have a job, you might be moving towards, it might not be a full-time job or a highly paid job or whatever. And you're moving towards then possibly a retirement alone or, at the beginning. So those things are important. But it's all about, so we've touched on what a toxic relationship is and what it costs us. We've touched on, how to recognize one for those who are, thinking of going back in there. And I will, make sure that we have the link to your PDF also in the show notes. Then we've also talked about people, who've been for 20 years or so in a toxic relationship, and so much so that they don't even know who they are anymore, or they don't have that rebellion feeling like you don't speak to me like that or whatsoever. They've just become completely passive, but still know that something is wrong, and how to start, looking for support in order to move outside of that. And then we've also talked about, toxic relationship with yourself and what you're saying to yourself the whole time, because that's my alley. And that is so incredibly true. I mean, the stuff we often say to ourselves is not anything that we would say to our worst enemy. So it's all about that undermining. What would you say are the 3 key things in order to boost that self-confidence and get out of a toxic relationship?
So slow down. Number 1 would be to give yourself lots of compassion for what have you done, what have you allowed, where you are, that you did your best.
Right.
You did your best, and with loving kindness to be like, I'm good. I'm really good. Put your hands on your heart and say, I have love for myself. That's number 1, to really stop beating yourself about whatever lack of money, relation, whatever, to really take a moment and recognize how great you are.
Yeah.
Even if you don't feel that you're great, you are great. You're doing amazingly well. Then the second step, I would definitely recommend to do the mirror work, because self-love is the foundation of everything, of even a successful business. If you want to have 10K per month, 20K per month, you cannot do it without self-love. You cannot do it with self-respect, self-worth. And if you have a self-worth and self-respect, you can step into a courage and confidence, right? That's just kind of a cherry on a cake. And the third one is to recognize that you do not have to do it alone.
Yeah.
You do not have to do it alone. Even if you are 70 and you think, oh, what's the point? I have only 10 years left. Well, 10 years well lived is amazing. So it's never too late. And women feel really guilty, ashamed, especially powerful women in high positions. They hardly talk about the fact that behind the closed doors, they might be in toxic relationship.
Right.
If you want to impact the world, if you have a story, if you have a mission in this world, if your story, your life story can help another woman, it's your duty to rise up and start speaking out.
Oh, beautiful, Monika. Thank you very, very much. I hope people have taken note of all of this. And, we're talking about a 50+ audience. Now is the time, right? Now is the time to really choose us in order to be happy people who will then be of service to others. So I will repeat, I mean, there was an awful lot that you've shared with us today. And I do very much encourage, especially those who will be following via the YouTube channel, to take their pen and paper and really make notes on this. But the 3 final tips were the compassion towards yourself, the mirror work, all about self-love, self-respect, saying it out loud to yourself and regularly, not just that one-off, and recognizing you do not have to do it alone, because we don't. No. Monika, just to finish off, because we are over time right now, for those who want to take it one step further and have heard you speak today, how do you work? Can people approach you? Do you coach online as well?
I coach online. Most of my clients are global women all over the world. I coach online. I can also do energy healing online. You don't have to be present. Those who want to have one-on-one in Amsterdam is also possible. But the destination is not an obstacle. Our energy travels all over the world.
I experienced it so myself as well. Yeah.
So it doesn't really, and yes, I prefer to do one-on-one. I could also work with small groups, but I believe that every woman is so unique.
Yes.
That I want to put attention to her.
And your website is monikazampa.com, right?
Yes, you can click there. You can look on the Facebook. Yes.
Right. Well, thank you. I shall put all of that in the show notes and encourage people to also check out all your PDFs, which can help people situate themselves already a bit. And now's the time to shine. So let's do it. Exactly. Take care, Monika. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.